We have big news from the Ottawa Senators today. They've hired a president of hockey operations, and we also have some significant news from the NHL waiver wire, including a claim and more players on waivers today. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some pretty important news to talk about today. We have a variety of things. Let's start with the news from the NHL waiver wire. We had a bunch of players start on waivers yesterday. It was the first day for waiver activity, so we're going to see a fair bit of names go through the waiver process here for, like I said, the next probably 7 to 10 days here as teams trim down their rosters. But there was one claim from yesterday, and that's Spencer Martin, goaltender from the Vancouver Canucks, was claimed by the Columbus Blue Jackets. We figured between Columbus or Colorado, a couple of teams dealing with goaltender injuries, they would be the most likely to pick up a goalie like Martin. Colorado was familiar. They had originally drafted him, but even if they did put in a claim, the process goes by last year's standings, and Columbus obviously was near the bottom, so there wouldn't have been too many teams be able to get their hands on somebody over the Jackets. Of course, Tarasov has not been participating in camp, dealing with an injury, and they're obviously concerned over that. You want to have somebody who can play behind Elvis, and certainly this kind of fits the mold here for a good short-term solution. So obviously Martin will go to Columbus. Everybody else from yesterday, including young defenseman Ty Smith and Rem Pitlick, what the Penguins did indeed clear. Now with Ty Smith, I would not be surprised if he is still traded, and some people always ask, well, why would they trade for somebody when they can pick him up on waivers for nothing? And the answer is simple, is because on the waiver wire, if you pick them up, then you have to keep them on the NHL roster, or they need to go through waivers again to be able to go to your minor league affiliate. Whereas if they've cleared and then you trade for them, you have so many days and so many NHL games that they can play without having to, you're not obligated where you have to put them. You don't have to keep them on the NHL roster because they've just cleared waivers. And they can be a call-up option for you, and you just have a little bit more flexibility on where you place them within your organization. So I still think Pittsburgh and Ty Smith are looking to get him a fresh start, and we'll see if they get that figured out. Some more new players on waivers today as well. We have a fairly long list here, nothing too earth-shattering, but the Colorado Avalanche have Keaton Middleton and Spencer Smallman, both on waivers. The St. Louis Blues have Adam Gaudette on waivers. He's really struggled since he first went to Vancouver out of college, looked pretty good, and never really materialized. It's been unfortunate for him. He's bounced around a lot, and this is not a new process to him. The Devils have Tyler Witherspoon on waivers, and the Rangers have a bunch, including Alex Belzile, Anton Bleed, Turner Elson, Ty Emberson, Connor Mackey, and Riley Nash, the veteran center who they signed to a one-year deal in the offseason. So I'm not really sure we'll see any claims out of those players. You never know, but most likely not. And like I said, I imagine for pretty much every day, we'll likely get a decent amount of players going through this as teams make their cuts and they trim down their roster. So the main thing for today, Spencer Martin going to the Blue Jackets. Now, as I mentioned, the other big news earlier today was the Ottawa Senators announced late this morning that they were hiring Steve Staois to join the organization as the new president of hockey operations. So this is probably one of the worst kept secrets in hockey. I've talked about it a number of times. Michael Landauer was very much expected to bring Steve Staois into the equation here. We just didn't know exactly what his role was going to be. However, no surprise with the long history between the two. They have known each other for 20 years, worked together for quite a few years with the Hamilton Bulldogs, had a lot of success as Staois became their president and general manager over a long stretch, including 2 OHL championships. Of course, Steve Staois has also worked for the Leafs in player development, and then, of course, that was before he worked with Andlauer, and then he went on to work recently for the past year with the Edmonton Oilers, and he was kind of regarded as being possibly a potential replacement for Ken Holland, because Holland's got 1 year left on his deal, and there's a speculation he may retire, and that he might be the successor there. But then they brought in Jeff Jackson, the agent who represented McDavid and so many other top athletes, and he became CEO, and just seemed like they have a different vision, and Staois wasn't necessarily going to be given an opportunity. So it made sense once that happened, and then Andlauer bought the team in Ottawa. Once that just obviously closed in the last couple of weeks, that speculation began. The Oilers had him removed off their website. Ken Holland just a few days ago confirmed that Staois was technically still with the Oilers. But now we learn that they were having discussions. Michael Landlauer had requested consent sometime in the past week directly with owner Daryl Cates to speak to Staois about a potential opportunity. So they granted that, and well, here we are. So Staois is a longtime player, over 1,000 games played, got his feet wet as an executive, like I said, in junior hockey, and had a tremendous amount of success. Obviously dabbled with a little bit of front office experience at the NHL level here as well. So it's a big step for him to not be a GM but go right to president. Obviously, when you have $1 billion or close to it transaction like Landlauer has here, you want people you trust involved, and like I said, a long history with Staois with success in that trust factor. It's a no-brainer that this was going to happen. It's just like I said, I didn't know the exact title. Some thought that maybe they would wait, and then if the time comes that they decide to move on from Pierre Dorion, that Staois would become the general manager. But I was like, no, I don't think they're going to wait. I think Staois is going to be involved. It's in what capacity, and now we know. So he's going to be above Pierre, leading the hockey operations department. As Michael Landlauer said, he felt like the front office was not robust enough. There wasn't enough support, that Pierre needed help. He said, obviously, he as the owner will be involved in some capacity, but he's got a lot of other business things that he has to work at and take care of on a day-to-day basis, and Pierre needs a more direct support. So obviously Staois will be the bridge between the ownership and the management team, but certainly it just makes sense. I mean, Pierre himself, even in the press conference earlier, said that he's been asking and begging for help for years. So this should be a good thing overall. I think Staois has a great vision. Well respected, really smart guy, well spoken, and we'll see. Obviously, the first order of business is to get the Shane Pinto situation taken care of. I suspect we're going to see other additional moves that Staois is going to be examining the front office and all other aspects of hockey ops, and kind of going through and making other recommendations for other additions. I don't think we're going to see much in the way of subtractions right now, unless people decide to resign if they don't think they have a future with this new ownership group. Otherwise, I think you're going to see additions, and then over time, some of the people that have been around maybe decide to move on or let go or what have you. But at the end of the day, I think this is a big move for Ottawa. It's been a long time. I don't think they've really ever had a president like that I can recall. It's been a really thin front office. Even when Brian Murray was alive and running the team, he was the GM. He never, he was the buffer between ownership and management, of course. And when Pierre Dorion and others were his assistants, but in the early days of Melnyk, they had a bigger front office, but then it slowly just kind of get eroded, and they were pretty thin there for a long time. They now have an analytics department. They've obviously got Sean Tierney with the organization, who's a big help. Obviously, again, familiarity. Landlauer and Staois have worked with him in Hamilton. So people people you trust. It's the way things go. So this is a big move for Ottawa. Daniel Alfredsson's also expected to be taking a role, but I don't think they've kind of finalized and confirmed exactly what he's going to do as of yet. I know a lot of people just assume the writing is on the wall for Pierre Dorion, and I'm not so sure. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a huge rush to do that. Over time, if things don't go well, then yeah, I can see it happening for sure. But if the team gets out of the gate strong, has a good season, makes the playoffs, I don't know that they really have good reason to get rid of Pierre, unless Pierre decides that it's time for himself to move on. I don't know what his contract status is, but at the end of the day, Michael Landlauer is just getting his feet wet here to leave his mark on this franchise and to expand the resources and the front office so that they can hopefully impact better product on the ice and get this team to closer to where its goals are. So let me know your thoughts on the waiver news and the Staois hiring in Ottawa down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.